Neither my dad nor I did we care. Like, I would have sold my car. If there was a shred of a piece of a ray of hope, we were going that way to give him quality of life.
I just wanted to, number one, just thank you so much for coming today and for inviting the doctor that actually worked on JD.
Yeah, he diagnosed him with when he broke his leg.
So tell me about that, when he broke his leg. So number one, we're going to talk about that, but you're a breeder, right?
Uh-huh.
You used to be a breeder.
Yeah. Kind of used to be.
Tell me what you do. Tell me about that.
Because I think now just everything has changed so much for us, moving from a very large ranch and having a breeding operation, a cow-calf operation. Really now I'm just going to keep cows to just keep an ag exemption. And if they have babies, they have babies. If they don't, they don't. And I do still have a bull that I kept, but he won't necessarily be with them all the time. So we'll see. I don't know.
How much land did you have before?
About 1,800 acres.
1,800 acres.
Mm-hmm.
And so how many cows, bovine, did you have at any one time out there?
Well, a long time ago, when my dad first moved out there in the 60s, they had as many as 200 head out there.
Wow.
But about 120 is what we had when I left, or when we left there.
Yeah, and so you had the 120. So you were faced with a dilemma, if you will, about a year or so ago, because your family there was issues in your family.
Divorced.
Family was getting divorced.
Yes, that's the best way I know to describe it, is our family got divorced.
Hey, I understand. I've divorced some. Well, I didn't divorce them, but some of my family has divorced me too. But so when that happened, you were forced.
Right.
By no decision of your own, to really take a hard look at, oh my God, I love these cows. They are part of my life. And
they were my babies. I knew every single one of them by sight. I knew their mother, their father. I knew them all. So they were my babies. Even though it was a cow-calf operation, it was always hard for me to sell calves, and which you have to do when you're in a cow-calf operation. That's how you make your money.
You do.
You also have to cull mamas. If they're not giving you a baby, they're not making you money. They're only costing you money.
That's how we got Cinnamon.
And they have to go. So
Cinnamon was that's how we got Cinnamon, the other Brahman we had.
Yeah,
she was not producing.
So that was always hard for me too. And a lot of times I gave cows a second and third chance, because I couldn't sell them, because I knew that given the opportunity, if they would have another baby, giving them time, or because they had a name, which all my other cow-calf operators would be like, don't name them, stop naming them.
Don't name them cows.
But they told me what their name was. I had to give them that name. They tell me what their name is.
Isn't that something? Exactly. My husband used to tell me, Renee, stop naming them cows. Stop naming them cows. You know you're going to have to see them go and
tell them to quit talking to me.
Exactly. I tell people all the time, Tara, it's interesting, because now that we're vegan and, used to be a cattle ranch, I tell people all the time, it's hard for people in our movement to understand and to wrap their head around the fact that cattle ranchers, breeders love animals, and they are doing the best they know how to do within what they think is what they have to do to make money. I mean, this is what when this is passed down generation after generation after generation, and there's a lot of pride in this. We take a lot of pride in the fact that we're taking care of the animals and the land, and it is hard, but we we grow up believing and are taught that this is just part of it.
Right.
So how did that start taking shape for you when you as a breeder and as a woman that loves animals too? How did that start? How does your emotions play into all that? I mean, how do you compartmentalize?
Well, like you said, it's the way things are. It's just the way it is. And so you accept it. I mean, from a young child, it was just my sister and myself on a ranch. We didn't have brothers. I mean, typically those kinds of chores and work or go to the sons, but we were daughters. That's all Daddy had. So we were in the pens working cows with him. When in the wintertime we were putting hay out, we worked cows with him. So when we would feed out steers to eat, I mean, you just went and fed them, and we knew where our food came from.
Yeah.
You know where corn grows. You know where your vegetables grow. But we also knew where our meat grew.
Oh, the vet's here.
Oh, yay! Matt's here. You don't care. You know what I mean? Like,
that needs to be said. Yeah. That people out there need to know. I just want to what you just said. Just because you're part of the machine doesn't mean you don't care.
Yeah.
You know, the machine is huge.
Yeah.
The ones that are on this side of the machine, small farmers, they definitely care and they do what they think they have to do. But the ones on the really inside of the machine, the feedlots, these operations that just 100,000 chickens every 52 days. I mean, there's so many levels of the machine.
Right. And
when you get to those levels of the machine, it's not. I don't think they have the capacity to care.
And it's kind of like going to a mom and pop diner and eating, and going to some chain and eating. Mom and pop take care and time and prepare you a meal like you would prepare a meal for your loved one. In a fast food restaurant or a chain restaurant or a conglomerate restaurant, it's all
you don't know what
you're just getting the same soylent green that
you don't know what you're getting. You know, it can be anything. I used to work for them places.
Soylent green was made of people.
I know.
But you know what I mean? Like, it's just everybody gets the same generic whatever. It was not.
So let me ask you, because you brought up a good point, and just forgive me because you gotta understand I'm coming at this being, having been in the industry,
right,
on the other side,
right.
So you brought a good analogy up, actually, because okay, you're a mom and pop restaurant serving a hamburger, okay, and man, that hamburger's great, and so you go to McDonald's and you get that same hamburger, and it's like, oh well, it tastes good, but we don't really know what's in it, but mom and pop knows what's in it, right? So what if you could, mom and pop, instead of using meat from an animal, use Beyond Meat?
Right.
Right?
Do meat like a veggie burger or.
Well, have you had a Beyond Meat burger or one of those protein? No,
I haven't.
God, we gotta make you one. I got some Beyond Meat. I got some Beyond Meat. Have you ever seen Beyond Meat crumbles?
No. The meat grown in the lab really freaks me out.
No, this is not. No, not that. Like this here.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Looks like meat.
And oh my gosh, you're talking about good. You can smell that.
It does smell good.
It does. And it's not, like terrible ingredients. I mean, water, pea protein, canola oil, coconut oil, rice protein, cocoa butter, mung bean protein, potato starch.
Oh, that's the color is the mung bean.
It's like, so if mom and pop could, and then here's this. I'm just showing you because we got it here. You seen that?
Okay. Oh, okay.
You talk about good.
Cool.
Beyond sausage. So, I mean, this is the thing, the world is actually, it's happening. I mean, more and more it's going to be going to plant-based proteins, not even lab-grown. I mean, lab-grown's a whole nother story. It's going to that too. But, but anyway, we're just talking about the mom and pop shop for a second. The reason why I kind of was thinking about that, because, what vegans sometimes say, and this is what's, because I'm like right now I'm asked to go to the Animal Liberation Conference in New York. They want me to speak, and they want me to do a training session for all the activists, because all these activists are so interested in this work we're doing with cattle ranchers, breeders. They want to know, how do you talk to those people? How do you not just like be upset with them all the time, for killing animals and da-da-da-da-da. Well, it's like on one side of the coin, I look at it and I go, well, in that restaurant that serves that hamburger, an animal had to die. An animal had to die. I'm just going to say this because you know it. You have a sensitive heart. They didn't want to die, right?
Well, they didn't ask for it.
No. And so if we can use plant-based protein instead in these restaurants, and so we're not trying to end animal agriculture from the sense of, well, I would love to see animal agriculture in. Let me just put it straight up. I would love to see that machine go away. The big machine of animal ag go away. I'm not trying to put farmers out of business.
Sure.
But what I am trying to do is educate farmers that there is another way.
Yeah.
There is another way. Like we have these going on 4 farms in our program. Going to Harvard to speak to them about bringing farm transition in their curriculum.
Right.
Wow.
Well, and you bring up something, and this is there's different ways, and a lot of times, and I think one of the couple that you interviewed, one of the farms or ranches that you started working with, they kind of came home to sort of take over the farm from their parents who were aging, and you do things because that's always the way it was done, and I, of course, have an immense respect for my dad and used him as my mentor, and as I went away for a long time. I mean, I grew up on the ranch and doing all that stuff, but I was gone for my whole, most of my adult life. I mean, I was as far as you can get from ranching. I was in interior design. So
oh wow, I didn't know that about you.
I did interior design.
We need to have this interview for me to know that about
So
her.
to then come home to the ranch and then kind of start relearning all of this. And I knew I was taking the reins from my dad, so I would ask him and talk to him about things. And instead of, as from when I was a kid, when it was just, yes, sir, I'll go do that exactly the way you told me to do that, it's like, well, but why do we do it that way?
And you came
Is
home
there
because...
a reason? Because my dad was 80 and he was still trying to be a cattle rancher by himself.
And that was before the
It's one of the most dangerous jobs there is.
that was before the divorce.
Before our family divorce, correct.
So you didn't know anything about that. You just came to help.
So I came home my mom had passed away, and so I just kind of came home to help out my dad, which he's very capable, but it's more of just making sure he's eating right and he's taking his pills and going to the doctor, and the lights go out at night that he goes to bed and the lights come on in the morning. And
being a good daughter.
So because he's a very capable person. He doesn't need a babysitter for sure. But
and what's his name?
His name's Wally. Walter, but everybody calls him Wally.
So was his family in cattle ranching, or what was?
So my grandfather, his father, who passed away before I was born, he had Wyatt Steel, was part of the Wyatt family, and had Wyatt Steel and Boiler Works in Houston.
Okay.
And they made those big boilers that are part of oil refineries, those great big steel storage tanks and things like that you see even like on the highway in like outside of Sealy. That's what they built. Big.
So he wasn't a cattle rancher.
But he always had property and land. He rode his horse to work.
Right.
This was back in the 30s.
Yeah.
In the 30s, when Houston was a little teeny tiny town, they actually lived in an area of the old section of River Oaks, and then and my grandmother's friends were like, "Why do you live so far out of town?" Well, and if you know at all about Houston, River Oaks is like smack in just about downtown. But yeah, he rode his horse to work downtown to the
had a small
to the factory, and then he always had. Their first place was out in where Cypress is, so that was a long way to go. And then they had a place out here near
they had cows
off of Peach Creek, and always had cattle and mules and grew crops and did their own hay.
So Dad got it honest.
So he
picked it up
and he's an outdoors guy. He liked being outdoors and doing.
So you came to take care of your dad, to help him with the farm, and then your dad's how old now?
He's 89 now.
So this all happened. Your family dynamic went 2 years ago?
About 2 years ago. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. About 2 years ago, but just got settled. And, once you get attorneys involved, everything costs more. It takes longer.
I'm so sorry that happened.
But we were very glad that we did have our attorneys involved, and that everything worked out the way it did. So ultimately,
she heard you call Celie.
Oh, how
she
funny.
heard you say Celie.
Hi, Celie. She likes my.
Yeah,
she likes us.
She loves shiny things.
So
because I'm trying to get to 2 years ago, and then so you found out that was all going to happen, and everything changed, and so you just happened to be sitting at home one day and watched Vet Life.
Well, yeah, I watched. I enjoy a lot of Animal Planet and Nat Geo Wild shows. And so I saw that, and I used to live in Cypress at one point. I lived in that area, and I just liked that it was a vet show about that had Texans, and it was in Texas. And so, so watched them, saw that they came out to your place, and I was like, oh wow, that's really kind of cool. Yeah. That there's a place, and I immediately thought about JD, and then I also had another cow named Sylvia that she had what's called a knockdown hip. So it's basically where the pelvis isn't really tilted. Maybe it is kind of like their pelvic bone gets tilted. Their hip is not thrown out of joint, but when you look at the cow from the back, you can always kind of see the tops of their pelvic bones, and you could tell that it was like this instead of even. And she kind of walked weird. So she did have her baby because she was pregnant, and then I never did want to breed her again because I knew she'd have problems delivering, but she was always my babysitter. For my young calves that I would wean, and it's easier on them. It's called calving ease when they have an adult cow with them to have comfort because they're crying for their mama, and it's hard to hear that because you hear the mamas crying, you hear the babies crying, and it's hard to hear that.
Nobody can explain that sound. It's a total different sound than when they're just moving.
Yes, exactly. And it's almost like the neighbor's dog who won't stop barking. It's kind of like that. Yeah. It's to the point where you're just I'm going to give them their baby back just so everybody will be quiet.
Oh, let me tell you,
you're killing me.
When we used to sell the calves, that's exactly what happened. I would hear those mamas crying, and I would tell my husband, I'm like, don't you hear that? Renee, he'd be watching his news or whatever he's doing. You're just you gotta just do something else.
We're listening.
Yeah, you can't. I said I can't do that. He says, well then you're gonna have to do something else. But I can't listen to that.
Suck it up.
I'm like, how do you not hear it? Suck it up. Where are your big girl panties? I said, how do you not hear that? Well, what I ended up doing, and this is what started happening, is I went outside with the mother cows, and I would just get on my knees and I would just cry with them.
Yeah.
I cried with them. I said, I felt so guilty. I felt so bad that I wasn't a vegan. I was a rancher's wife. Mm-hmm. No, I didn't go vegan for a long time.
And that's just like you were saying, where just because we're part of it doesn't mean I don't care.
I know.
I love animals very much.
I know you do.
I love that bull out there so much. He picked me.
Yeah, I know that.
He chose me. He chose me and my dad, and so for me not to take the responsibility to see him through the entirety of his life where he is safe and cared for makes me irresponsible, and I'm not an irresponsible person.
I know you're
so, and I could not, because of his injury, and I know we'll talk about this a little bit more, but because of his injury, death was his only option. And I couldn't just sentence him to death. Thank goodness I was watching Animal Planet and saw you guys, and I'm like, that's where he's going. He's going to go there.
And you knew that. You picked me too, you know.
He's going to go there. I picked you.
JD picked us for you.
He picked me. I picked you.
That is exactly what happened. JD picked us through her. I mean, if you read this letter,
JD wrote the letter. I just typed it. He just told me what to say.
You were his channeler. I mean, this letter, I have to share it just for a minute. I know it's.
It's in the bottom
It's in
one.
here somewhere.
Oh, that's the wrong one. This is mine right here. You don't have the full file, see?
I don't have the letter.
No, we should not have 2 files on JD. We only need 1 animal file. Only 1. No. Okay, so otherwise it'll be very confusing. All right, so I guess what I did here. Oh my
There
God.
we go.
So he
wrote a long letter. Sorry.
He's
very verbose.
So if you just kind of zoom in on this. So this is the letter that I got in my email, and it starts off with, my name is JDH Mr. Manzo 378/6, but my friends just call me JD. I mean, come on. It started, you had me at hello. As soon as I read that, I was like, oh my God, this letter, and I just started reading with the pictures, and then when we got to the part where JD broke his leg, oh my gosh, I knew when I was reading this and saw this that I was talking to a woman that deeply loved and cared for animals. And
that was very expensive. I mean, he wasn't free, but that was very expensive.
I can't imagine.
Very expensive. And I didn't even, neither my dad nor I did we care. Like, I would have sold my car. I didn't, there was no way. He was just, if there was a shred of a piece of a ray of hope, we were going that way to give him quality of life. That had quality of life. I wasn't just going to keep him because I wanted him. Right. Because I don't think that's right either when if they're afraid or in pain. And I knew that he was not afraid and that the pain I could manage for him till he got well. And that's what we did.
But what's important for anybody out there that's watching this to understand is this is the complexity of ranchers, breeders that love animals. This is a complex issue you can't just say black and white that because people are breeders or because they're ranchers, you know, that they don't care about animals. See, and a lot
It's the exact opposite.
It's the exact opposite.
It is the exact opposit, and it's a contradiction.
And this is
it's
why
like an oxymoron.
It is. And this is why it was so hard for me. It took me 4 years when I first started making connections. I mean, I'm from Texas, married to my love of my life, married him twice, cattle rancher. You know, I was proud of that fact. I mean, I was proud of being married to a cattle rancher, and then I started having these connections with the animals in a way that where I could not separate my heart from them.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it anymore. I got to the point to where I could not do it. It's not that I thought my husband was a bad person. Now, granted, right when I went vegan, I was calling him a murderer. Poor guy. I was calling him a murderer, and I was like, I'm an accomplice to murder. I felt like I was an accomplice. That's what happened. I mean, I went all the way around to there.
Right.
To be able to get to a place inside of me where I can now be an advocate for ranchers. It's crazy.
Well, I think that's wonderful.
It's crazy.
I think it's great.
It's really crazy. But anyway, getting back to JD's story just for a second. So you saw us on Vet Life, and then you realized that what was going on with your family was a dead end. You were going to be losing the property. You were going to have to do something with all the animals.
We were majorly downsizing. Majorly went from 1,800 acres to, and I say it's a small place. It's 124 acres. And most of my friends who've spent most of their life in the city are like, well, that's still a big place. And it's like, well, no, it's not. That was not even half of a pasture for me.
Yeah.
And that's my whole property. And so it's a small place. So we definitely downsized. I fortunately have developed friends who bought a lot of my herd.
Yeah, tell me about that.
I was able to sell to other friends my herd. I didn't really send anybody to auction. So I was able to find, and I mean, of course I got paid for them, but so I was able to do that. In fact, a majority of them live about 15 minutes from here. Like they're right up the road from you.
Wow.
I just saw a lot of them the other day because I stopped by his house to visit. But
wow.
Yeah, and
so what was so special about JD and Rowdy Girl Sanctuary to where when you saw that you knew you wanted this?
This was the same way, and Sylvia was not as lovely as JD is. Like JD loves to be petted on and touched. She liked to eat cookies and treats, but she didn't want you to touch her. She's like, don't touch me.
That's how Rowdy Girl.
But that's fine. We all have our boundaries.
We all have our
and main thing, about Brahmins in particular, shy, curious, and intelligent. And so when you get to know a Brahmin's personality, you know what their likes and dislikes are. But I could not see either one of those cows. I mean, ultimately, I knew if I could not find a place for them to go, because it was going to be too hard for me to take them with me. That my only option was to put them to sleep. To basically, and to me, that would have been murdering them, or trying to send them to auction, which would have been murdering them, because neither one of them, with their leg conditions that they had, would have made it anywhere in an 18-wheeler cattle hauler. They would have gotten down and probably been trampled to death. So, death or death being the options, I knew it was very, very risky to try to castrate JD at his age, because he's 6.5. But I knew that I had to try. I knew I had to try because our option was death anyway. If I killed him trying to get him someplace else, I would at least feel better, and he would have at least had a more dignified end as opposed to going through an auction.
Oh, it's terrible. Auction.
I have never bought any animals at auction.
That's good.
It's
horrible.
I have only bought from individuals. Because if I'm going to buy a cow, I want to know who I'm buying it from, and I want to know how you treat your animals. I'm not going to just.
Yeah, those are not nice places.
I don't want to give my money to somebody who doesn't treat their animals well.
Yeah, it's
So
not a nice place to be. Those sale barns. It's oof.
yeah. Well, and they're so loud. I can't handle that either. That gives me
Tommy never liked to go
makes me nervous. It gives me anxiety when it's so loud. But
shuffling and moving and prodding and pushing and
yeah, no, I can't handle that. So, but yeah, I mean, so I just knew that was the right thing to do for him, and you and your husband are just so. I knew something had to be extraordinary about you when you could inspire a tried and true cattle rancher man to take him 180 degrees from in his viewpoint that was special, and
he's a special.
And JD needed to be with you all. That he would have a good life here, and he does.
And he does.
And it makes me happy. It makes me sad, but it makes me happy.
Yeah, he's loved. He's loved so much. My husband.
I have showed that picture of you that you sent me, rubbing Arnika into his leg. I have showed that to so many people, and they're just like, "Are you that can't? That's like it just it's wrong." In there. Because they think of bull, and I'm sure that most people think of bulls. They think of like PBR bull riding, or in Madrid with bullfighting. They think of bulls like that, like they're gonna come kill you. No, not, no. Just.
I mean, I feel like I could almost curl up with him.
He's like a 1,500 pounds dog.
Yeah, he is.
But you have to be careful when he gets pushy.
Yeah, we figured that out. He takes that head comes at you like, no, I'm done.
Bulldozer.
I'm done.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
you Barbara Walters me. I've cried twice now.
It's okay. He's such a sweetheart, and having emotions and feelings for these animals that they cry too.
Yeah, they do.
They do. They have tears.
I've seen many a tear. So
Cinnamon came to us. She was, she's our other Brahman.
Yes, I love her. She's so beautiful.
Isn't she gorgeous? And so when the breeders brought her and she stepped off that trailer, it was much the same as when JD came. You could feel the spiritual energy hit the ground. I mean, when JD hit the ground, it was like he transmitted something here. Mm-hmm. Same thing happened with Cinnamon.
Well, and I loved how a lot of times when you've gotten an animal in a trailer, and usually it's a little bit of an, discussion getting them into the trailer because they don't want to go.
No.
And then getting bounced around in a trailer, you get to where a new place, they don't know where they are.
No.
But I loved how he got out of the trailer and he just kind of looked around and was like, oh, okay, I'm here.
He did, didn't he?
And well, it wasn't very long before he was laying down.
Laying down. Giving him a massage with Arthur.
So, I And I mean, I even drove by him with my truck and trailer, and he didn't even move. I was worried because it was like he might get a little bit excitable, and you were sitting down, and I'm like, just please don't hurt her. just because they're so big. It's not like
that's right.
You know, it's not like he would have tried to hurt you on purpose.
No, you gotta be careful around these big animals
because they're so big. You know, a flick with his hoof, and
I've learned,
you know, pocket's over.
Yeah, well, but what I was going to say when Cinnamon came to us, she had tears gushing down her eyes because she was supposed to go to slaughter that day, or actually a few days before. But instead of when she got in that trailer to come to us, she should have been going to the sale barn, and she would have been slaughtered because she was not able to have babies. That's where she would have. That would have been her fate. And everybody that knows Cinnamon knows. Oh my God, she's an intelligent, spiritual, beautiful diva.
Shy, curious, intelligent.
Yeah, she is. And so we hope to hook JD and Cinnamon up, eventually.
Yeah.
Like I always say, even though he can't have babies, don't mean he can't have fun.
Yeah, right. Hey, it's like two elderly folks. They're not looking to reproduce, but everybody likes some companionship.
That's right, exactly. So, is there anything else you want to translate or transmit, or question?
I think we're in a time where everybody is very sometimes overly vehement with their message, or they think that if someone is doesn't think exactly the way they do, that that person's maybe discounted, or you're wrong because you don't feel the same way I do. I just think I've always feel that that's open for opportunity for discussion, because we're always nobody knows everything. You can always learn something new from somebody who may be in direct opposition to everything you are and believe, but there's definitely something you can learn from them, whether it's what to or not to do, but you can always learn from somebody. And usually the people that are in opposition to you and your viewpoints, those are the best people to learn from.
They are. And how is she going to learn if you're with
everybody
that's just like you?
When you just stay in your own little microcosm, there's no, it's hard to get
That's
new
what I love about
and
having
different
this conversation.
information.
JD would not be here if I was one of those types of vegans, and they're out there that are, just real antagonistic. I mean,
Right.
I'm a full-on vegan. I'm totally plant-based. I don't eat any animal products. I'm considered, one of the leaders in our movement. I mean, I didn't give myself that title, but other people say that. Animal rights is my life.
Right.
But you know what else is my life? Is also advocating for ranchers. Also advocating for people like you that, I know you love animals. I know you love JD. And, I know what happened to me. I know what happened to my husband, Howard Lyman. I stepped through a window of my soul when I went vegan that I never knew existed. See, to go on the other side of that veil, we're taught as ranchers, you don't. There's some things you don't cross. You don't go there. This is the way it is, right?
Right.
This is the way it is, by God, and this is it. But I was that girl, that rowdy girl, that challenged every step of the way. I'd ask my husband things like, well, why ain't we eating our own animals? Well, I couldn't eat my own animals. I'm like, well, why not? Well, I don't want to answer that. I said, well, I want you to answer. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to be in this business with you, why don't we eat our own animals? Why aren't we out there poisoning our animals up, slitting their throats, and skinning them, and putting them in the freezer? I said, because I know.
Yeah.
then light bulbs started going on for me, and I was like, no, I didn't go vegan that day. I was just like, oh,
Right.
so you can eat the ones in the freezer. Could be their mother or their dad or their cousin.
Yeah.
But, you
Yeah.
can't eat our. And so then my little rowdy mind, and
Your little wheels started turning.
I was like, okay, then, if that's the case, we're gonna pick one of our own and we're gonna slaughter it. Which one's it gonna be? And I was serious.
Mm-hmm.
I said, if I'm going to do this, I wanted to make myself I wanted to feel justified.
Right.
I wanted to feel right about doing what we were doing. He said, Renee, I can't do that. I said, no, you pick one. If we're going to do this, we at least need to pick one of our animals. We need to offer it to the community. We need to all go in together, and we need to offer this animal, and we need to slaughter it ourselves and do it right. He was like, well, Renee, if I had to choose one, I'd choose Lucky. I was like, okay. Well, he called
That's
him.
usually how that goes. The
And
one-eared, three-legged, no-tail
We know
dogs
what he
named
called it.
Lucky.
Yeah, exactly. You know what his name was, though? It was Broke Leg.
Oh, goodness. Okay.
Because Lucky, Broke Leg, was actually Rowdy Girl's firstborn as a boy.
Okay.
And Tommy thought that leg would never heal. He was always limping on it. And we still have him here. And
So apparently
he's still lucky. He got the name Lucky righteously, because Lucky, the reason he got his broke leg or his weird leg is because he jumped off the last truck that went to sail, and he
that's
hurt
right.
himself.
Yeah.
Okay, and so he was going to pick that one. And so anyway, I started talking around town to people that wanted to go in with me to butcher Lucky.
Right.
Well, that's the conversation. It started changing everything.
Yeah.
And see, I started going through these. In the Bible, there's a verse that says, "In my Father's house, there's many mansions. If there wasn't, I wouldn't have told you so," or something like that.
Right.
And so I started going through these mansions. I started going, well, what if?
Yeah.
What if?
Right. Right.
And that led me
Right.
to finally jumping off the cliff.
And that's what I love about you and your message. Even though I am not a vegan,
Right.
I'm not a vegan. I will say I have never when we've spoken, I don't know, a bunch of times, usually for a long period of time, I have never felt any kind of judgment or pressure from you that you don't approve of the way I live my life, nor that you want to push me to change my life. Because as you know, you have to get there on your own.
And what I know about you, what I love about you, is that you're willing to listen.
Yes.
To just be educated.
And
get to know me.
And maybe it's because my parents were also all teachers. My dad taught chemistry and physics. My mom was English and Spanish. My stepmom was also taught English and Spanish, and even worked for the state of Texas in the State Department of Education. So, education is I love to learn. I love to learn. I was born into a family who's Presbyterian, but that doesn't mean I don't have interest in other. I've been to Catholic, Lutheran, Baptist, you name it. I've probably been to.
You're learning. You don't mind learning.
Because I find it interesting. I want to know. Just because that's the way. Hi, precious. Just because that's what I was born into doesn't mean that that's the only way there is.
Exactly.
And I like to know if I'm going to form my own opinion. I want to be educated in how that opinion is.
And you want to be able to make those decisions. I mean, that's why
for myself.
It took me 4 years to get here.
So
I didn't get there overnight.
Right.
And and I didn't even know I was going vegan when it happened. I never even knew it was happening to me until that final straw broke. Whenever that beef stew. Did I tell you the story about the beef stew? I didn't tell you that. Well, this is the story. This is what.
And I really don't like beef stew. Most of the time, beef stew is not good.
Well, I loved it. Okay, I loved it, and my mother always made it. She always got that beef stew meat, and she always seared it with flour and braised it and made a gravy, and it was always so good. I grew up loving that. But I stumbled on a dissertation by a PhD named Melanie Joy, and she had a dissertation on carnism. This was during the time when I was really educating myself on what was really happening to animals in cell barns. I was educating myself. I was watching slaughterhouse videos. I was not vegan, but I was learning all this stuff for the first time, and I was just like, oh my god. I started crying, and I was mad at my husband. I was like, why are we doing this? And then one day, I stumbled on this carnism, and it was a little story, and it went like this here. Well, this family's sitting around a table like this, and they're having beef stew. And then they're all enjoying the beef stew, and somebody says, oh, I love this. What's the recipe? And the lady of the house says, well, you start off with a pound of a very young golden retriever.
Oh, no!
Oh! Everybody stopped eating,
Yeah.
and I was in this place, I'd been watching all these videos, and I was just like, could be eating a dog, and I wouldn't even know it. This beef stew, it's chopped up meat. I mean, how would I know what that is, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So that night, it was October 31st, 2014. That night, this is the night I went vegan. I could tell you the moment I slipped through the veil. It was so unannounced. Went to my mother-in-law's. It was Halloween. All the kids were there in their Halloween outfits. All the babies. We were having fun. It was just all this big thing. And my mother-in-law brings out a big old pot of beef stew.
I'm not eating the golden retriever.
All I know is my ears started ringing. And the kids were playing. It was loud. It was ruckus. It was, the adults were talking. And all of a sudden, I look at my mother-in-law. I look at my husband. I said, I can't eat that. And she said, well, why not, Renee?
I don't want to do that.
I said, because it's got floating dead, hacked up animal parts in it. I said that out loud to my mother-in-law.
Mother-in-law, oh Lordy.
Oh my God. My husband looked at me, my family looked at me, the kids looked at me, everybody looked at me, and all of a sudden it was just like,
I bet it was really quiet.
And I looked around and I said, well, it does. And my mother-in-law said, well, Renee, you can pick it out. I said, no, ma'am. Ain't no more picking it out for me.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened.
It was that time.
It was
your time.
It was as if I couldn't do it.
It was your time.
I was like, oh. And so as soon as that happened, my poor husband.
He wasn't ready, was he?
Oh no, we were fighting like War of the Roses. You ever see that movie?
Yeah, I love that movie.
Instead of hanging
anybody who's been divorced knows that movie.
Instead of hanging from the chandeliers, I was hanging from the elk head, because we had a house full like deer horns, exotics. My husband was an avid hunter. I mean, he had an elk. We had an elk in our living room that was like he considered an heirloom because
was he like a Boone Crockett?
His great grandfather.
Oh wow! Okay.
It was literally an heirloom to him.
Oh my goodness!
So I would go into my house, and now that I was vegan, it just happened to me. It ain't like some activist was trying to get me to change. It was just like it happened.
Right.
And all of a sudden, it was as if my feelings were from inside out here, and I'd walk in that house, and I'd see all these horns, and I had to duck my head. I felt like I was in a graveyard. That had never happened to me. I mean,
right.
Something
it just
happened.
Switch flipped.
Something changed. And that's why I think because no activist was beating on my door, except for Rowdy Girl. She was the only one, the cow. She was the only one that, was kind of helping me get in. But I think that's the reason it happened the way it did for me.
Yeah.
And why I have so much empathy.
I think it has to happen organically like that. No pun intended. But you just have to get to that place, that space.
But that's why I have so much empathy. See, for you, for
and I appreciate that. And that's why you're perfect for doing what you're doing, because you know both sides of it. You know your own journey and how you got to where you are, and just for being there for people like myself who I haven't flipped that switch like you did, but that doesn't mean I don't love
That don't mean
animals.
you don't care and don't love animals. That's exactly right. I have lots of friends. I mean, I have a real dear friend, a mentor of mine, but somebody I love that's a breeder, cattle rancher. They breed not limousines, but I can't think of what they're
Santa Gertrudis?
No.
Charlotte?
No, what is that? I can't even think of it. But anyway,
Maine Anjou?
Maine Anjou. You know, that's what Stormy was.
Yeah.
Stormy was a Maine. Oh, she was beautiful.
Angus? I'm trying to...
No, I know, and it's not any of those. No. You'll remember it in a minute. You're gonna say it
Probably.
But we had a Maine Anjou, little Stormy. She was blind, and we bought her from a breeder, a Maine Anjou breeder. We didn't buy her. Back that up. We definitely didn't buy her. She was surrendered to us.
Yeah.
By a Maine Anjou breeder.
Because now, see, yeah. I mean, it's just, there's, anyway.
Beefmaster.
Beefmaster. I was thinking with Beefmaster, but Beefmaster, I don't know, that's I know it's a breed, but it's kind of not really a breed.
Really? What is it?
Well, it's a mix of, I think it's a mix of Maine Anjou, Angus, and Brahman. So it's really, if you have Boss Taurus and Boss Indicus, which Brahmans are Boss Indicus, and most English bred cows are Boss Taurus, then you have what's considered an F1, which is like a different. It's not the same. So anyway, and that's a whole other conversation.
She's a really good friend of mine. I mean, she,
yeah.
and we just, it's, I don't understand.
Beefmaster were bred for, it's kind of like, I mean, the Angus Cattle Breeding and Breeders Association has done a great job in touting and marketing Angus meat being so much better. It's just all meat, but Beefmaster was bred for meat.
Yeah,
because it's the animal is very fleshy. It's sweet as the muscle. But it doesn't eat any more than any other cow, but it gains more muscle quicker. Just kind of like how they've changed chickens and
so let me ask
to have big breasts, to grow a big breast, and they have to kill them by a certain age because otherwise their breasts get so big that their legs break.
Yeah, like the ones out here. So let me ask you, if you...
I still eat chicken, so...
Yeah? Do you? Yeah, well, I used to...
It's not nice of me to laugh. I know probably upset
but,
somebody, but I mean, that's part.
That's the reality.
And I kind of, and it's like, well, I didn't ask anybody to do that. Like, I didn't ask anybody to develop a chicken with giant breasts, legs. Like, and I don't know this. We'll kind of use up all the memory in your camera having this, or your phone. Having this conversation.
Ryuji's gonna love this.
It's like, let's talk about chickens.
No, but it's
and turkeys and
it just boggles
and
my
they
mind.
eat horses and
cats and dogs
and in Europe, but I mean, can't touch horses in the United States.
They do. They're shipping them to Mexico.
But that's what I'm saying. But they don't sell the meat here in the United States.
Yeah, you watch. It's probably going to come.
I'm saying, but why are horses? What makes horses
different,
more special?
Or what makes a cat or a dog, right? And they're even skinning cat's fur down, making.
Well, and if you think about it, here's one thing too. Dogs worked. Dogs were, before we had horses here. Before the Spanish brought horses here to the United States or to North America, dogs were the ones who did all that work. Mm-hmm. Dogs pulled the plow. Dogs did all that work. So you didn't eat them.
Right.
Because they were your beast's burden.
Yeah.
They did all the manual labor.
But they didn't apply for the job.
Well, no.
No.
But we have these, so apparently that makes us smarter.
Oh. Evidently, done was fucking up the whole world.
Here we go.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that. But we must not be very smart with this. What we're doing in the world. Did you look up what was going on in Australia?
Yes, I started seeing that. There's
1 billion animals.
it's just
a billion.
And I saw some interviews with the Irwin family, which I think they're just darling, and seems like, I mean, there's no way that they can do enough, but
I'm so drawn to go to Australia. I'm gonna go so bad. I just want to go and be a voice for these animals, for these ranchers that are devastated over there because they're these ranchers, the breeders are all devastated over there. You know, and so see, kind of what's happened with me is I've become like a bridge.
Yeah, and I think opposing sides need a bridge if there's ever going to be any sort of understanding between the two or compromise.
That's what's kind of happened with me. So I've somehow managed to be in a place where I can talk to both sides and absolutely have conversation, talk about hard stuff, which we did today. Yeah, I mean, I just do because I'm curious. You know,
well, it's your personality too. I think, and so for somebody to say, "Well, how do you talk to them?" Well, we're all just people. It's not like we've got a secret handshake being in a cattle breeder's, business. It's just that's what we do. It's not necessarily who we are. To some degree, it's just a job. Yeah. It's not who I am. It's just what I do.
See, what's happening? What's happening is there's beginning to be a shift in consciousness for people because they're beginning to see and understand. Because nobody, I'm sure you are not a proponent of slavery today.
No.
Or women being, wearing long hair and being on the other side of, having to do everything their husband says. No. So but these are all social issues that happen through time. And then now, we would think it abhorrent if we, if somebody had slaves.
Right.
Or women were, considered, couldn't vote.
Right.
And it's the same thing that's happened now with animal rights. I mean, it's like the conversations are starting to be had because these same the same ideologies, the same conversations are being had. Well, these they didn't apply for that job.
Right.
Animals just want to be animals. They just if I take it all the way back to if I took it back to a creation story, God created Adam and Eve and all the animals, right? And they're all out there and they're doing their thing. Never was there a place where you could find a place where there was cattle ranches or breeders or fur factories or anything. Man decided to commodify animals probably about 10,000 years ago, and so.
Right.
I want to recommend a book to you.
Okay.
I think you will really love this book. I think it'll really resonate with you because you like to learn, and it's called World Peace Diet. Okay. World Peace Diet. It's written by Dr. Will Tuttle, and it's really a book that delves into why we do what we do in the world, and it goes into psychological, philosophical, historical, and the bottom of and the end of the road is, well, if we all just paid attention to what was on our plate, and we all just ate food and drank liquids where nobody had to die, it could possibly change the entire way humans relate, even in other countries.
Right.
Because the word war, I learned this from him in the book. The word war in Sanskrit means the desire for more cattle.
Really?
Really.
Wow.
The word head, per head, we have so many head of cattle. Capita, which means per capita, like per head. Our capitalistic system, our capitalism, our entire economy is built on really the backs of animals. We created this economy about 10,000 years ago when we started herding animals.
Yeah, and I mean, it's certainly the start of a conversation, and I know there's some groups out there who don't want you to have a pet, for a dog or a cat.
Right, they are.
Well, but
he's not vegan.
but what happens, I don't know, that's just, all my animals, all my dogs and the cat, they've shown up at my door.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't adopt them from a shelter. I did, and they were thrown out. They were thrown away.
Yeah,
so
that's
thrown
ours
away.
too.
So, and of course, if I did, ever want another animal like that in our life, I would go to a shelter. And I mean, all shelters, as great as they are for dogs and cats, they're kind of jail. I mean, they live in a cell and they get rec time. But I don't have the answers for any of that for sure. But it's definitely something that I think about too. I mean, I see both, no, they didn't ask to be a pet, but what's the alternative? I mean, if there's no spaying and neutering and things like that, then there's nothing but disease and starvation. And I've had this discussion with a friend of mine regarding deer. She was opposed to deer hunting, and it's I mean, I don't love venison. It's not a favorite thing of mine. But I also know that and my friends who are hunters, they are pulling genetic defects out of the genetic population, the older animals who you are saving them maybe from starvation. Because if there isn't any hunting, that's kind of what happens. If there's a lot of genetic defects, so there's suffering there, and then there's also starvation because there's only so much food to eat because people need to build another subdivision and an apartment complex, and we need another Walmart shopping center, and all of that land that those animals browse and live on is gone. So starving to death is way better than you just
look what's happening in Australia right now. There's no even food.
I mean, I wouldn't want that for myself either, but I also,
But we've gotten, and I know we got to end this interview here in a minute.
That's what I'm saying. We're going to use up all the memory in your phone, and you and I can talk for days.
I know. we should have our own talking show. Like we should have
point and counterpoint.
Yeah. We should do this more often. Honestly, just come around and we'll have conversations,
and that's what it is.
Tara.
And I love that. And you can end on this, is that it's all about just having a conversation and not coming in with anybody having a closed mind, because a closed mind and a closed heart, you're not going to learn anything new, and you're certainly not going to love.
No, you're not. And that's a great place to live. I love that. All right, guys, we appreciate y'all so much. I'm Renee King-Simon, founder of Rowdy Girl Sanctuary. This is my sweet friend, Tara, who is the mama of JD. And we are so glad that we have adopted him and that he's part of our family. And we're I'm just going to say this to all of you out there, that JD is available to be sponsored in our adoption program, and we certainly do need your help. So if you need to ask any questions or whatever, just feel free to direct message me. Thank you.